All right, everyone. So I made a video about like the Taliban and why, which I covered the Soviet invasion. So fast forward to 9/11 and post 9/11, when United States went in and invaded, and the occupation that followed for 20 years. There's a lot of crap. It's just people say nonsense, and they quite do not want to understand history. It's either because they either don't know, or the lack of willingness to understand, but yet they feel really brazen to talk about things they quite do not really care about understanding. So before I get started, there is a book, if anyone is interested. It's called The Afghanistan Papers. It's written by a New York Times journalist. I believe he works for the New York Times, or he does freelance work. His name is Greg Whitlock. So he basically, coincidentally, his book actually came out, I believe, in the same month, August of 2021, is when the Taliban came back. It's called, again, The Afghanistan Papers by Greg Whitlock. It's an excellent book. He pretty much covers the 20-year war and the failures that were quite avoidable, but they were not. So now I'm not going to cover that book, but some of the things I'm going to cover in this video are very well covered by him in his book. So the failures, right? So United States, after 9/11, people died. People in America were quite angry, just like anyone would, especially those who are quite not familiar. At that moment, you do not want to, unfortunately, people don't want to think too much, so they just want to do stuff or respond. And that's exactly what you don't want to do, is respond, because you're going to most likely do something that will not be wise, and you're going to entangle yourself. And that's exactly what happened. So the Bush administration, whatever intentions they had prior to 9/11, they made a very arrogant decision, came out of arrogance, and then everyone was hot-tempered, hot-headed. They thought, okay, we're gonna just go in and we're gonna just flex our power. First of all, regarding flexing your power, everyone in the world knows that the United States has the world's most powerful military. So why are you flexing, right? Why? It's just okay. In situations like that, you take a step back and really evaluate how you're going to respond. The smarter way to respond is to really go after and investigate, and that takes time, right? So the appetite for that was not there. Former President Bush was like, okay, we'll respond, they're gonna see our wrath. Obviously, he didn't use the exact words, but it was pretty much that. They're gonna see our power, they're gonna see our response. And now you're going in, invading a country that has been devastated by the Soviet war, and then in the 90s it was a civil war, and then the Taliban came in 96, especially them being so archaic and with their views regarding women and all that. So the world pretty much cut off its relations and the aid, and what the country actually really needed was civilian help. When it comes to medicine, food, that was all cut off. There was United Nations that was still active, but it was very in limited capacity. So now you're going in, flexing your power on a country that's impoverished, devastated, and now you're going in with hot heads, okay, you did. It was not hard for the United States to obviously invade and succeed. Nobody doubted that. Anybody who doubted that, I guess, that doesn't know. It was not about whether the United States succeeds in overthrowing the Taliban and pretty much putting a government in as a replacement. That was never in doubt. It's like, what's the follow-up, right? What's the objective? What's the goal? What are you trying to do? So that's when the challenges started hitting. we decided to invade a country that was devastated, which you had a role in. United States had a role in during the Soviet invasion, and it was not overall a positive one, guys. I don't want to go there again. Perhaps I can cover that in another video. But anyway, so fast forward to post 9/11. Now the country pretty much didn't even have a government that resembles any modern nation, right? So you have a group that's super archaic, super religious. They had a religious theocracy. And everything pretty much in the capital was destroyed. Whatever infrastructure that existed in Afghanistan before the Soviet invasion was all destroyed during the Civil War. It was not destroyed when the Taliban came. It was already destroyed before they even came to power in 96. So because of the internal fighting. So now you have United States went into a country that doesn't even have basic necessities like running water, functioning electricity. So now there's logistical issues, there are infrastructure problems. I mean, they pretty much don't even exist now. The military doesn't exist, so now you have to start everything from scratch. And by the way, that's not the country that the Soviets invaded. So the Soviets invaded a country that had something. It was not pretty high up there, but they came into a country and left a country that was in a much better shape in whatever way, relatively speaking, than when the United States went in. So now everything had to be started from scratch. A lot of the people, the policymakers that were tasked with the Afghan war, were not quite familiar with the intricate details and the intricate, peculiar details of the country. So they would say, okay, maybe we should do this, but they completely lacked the comprehensive knowledge on what to do in the country, or what the country is, with the different ethnicities, the different languages, the north, south, east, west, all of that. And they just all started hitting them later. And so now you're entangled, right? So it's one thing to but invade a country and bring in the military force. Now, regarding military force, guys, it's not easy to just bring in soldiers and troops and then just leave. So how the hell do you do that? Because when the troops come in, you don't just drop troops and they gotta be doing what? Wandering around? They need housing, they need logistical support, they need ground support, they need medical teams. So when the US initially was the U.S. Special Forces, so the Delta Force, the SEALs. I don't know to what extent the SEALs were involved, but they were probably involved. And then the Marines followed. So now all of them, they need housing, they need logistical support, they need ground support, they need air support. All of that, you need to build a massive infrastructure, a massive military infrastructure to support all those operations. You don't just drop troops and pull out. That's not that. No, anybody with basic military knowledge knows this. It might take you it might take you longer to leave than get in, because now you have built all the infrastructure. How the hell do you just pull out? And it's not that easy. Just even logistically talking, guys, you need to withdraw and all that equipment and everything. I'm not even including the stuff you're not gonna take back. So scraps and all that, you can obviously leave. Okay, guys, sorry. So speed trap. Okay. You can't just leave. So, and then the whole training of the Afghan military, okay, there's a big problem there. Again, there's like language barriers, and how do you do that? Who do you trust? Now you have dealing with a population that was, again, devastated by the war before that, lack of education, cannot even read and write properly, there's no discipline. So how do you do that? And then obviously the US military couldn't do everything on its own, so they had to contract the stuff out. Vice President Cheney pretty much kind of wanted to slowly privatize the war. Well, not initially, but they were giving out contracts. So food, when it comes to like food, it was like, because the military doesn't do everything on its own. They can't. It's just too big. So either it has to focus on the fighting and internal military tasks. So you just outsource the other stuff like bringing in the fuel, the logistical support, the housing, building the housing for the troops. All that was outsourced. So now you have people from other countries coming in and doing all that and subcontract this, contract this, and then that company will subcontract this, subcontract that. Next thing you know, so the army or the Air Force or the Marines would sign a deal with one company, and then when you trace it, it goes down to 3-4 other subcontractors. So the money was kind of swindling here and there. Regarding the money, a lot of money went into Afghanistan, but it never went to where it mattered. Most of it went into the military spending. So all the operations that U.S. forces with Afghan forces were conducting, a lot of that required a lot of resources. So air requires ground support, fuel, all that. So that's not cheap, especially bringing in fuel and stuff like that into a country like Afghanistan is just not an easy task. So you have to transport, you have to make connections, you have to have routes. How the hell do you get that there safely? So obviously you have to pay people on the way to kind of not attack you and stuff, and sometimes things will not even get to where they were supposed to get to. A lot of corruption happened, because US took the Bush administration flooded the country with a lot of money. So when you do that, obviously you're incentivizing, whether it was directly intended or indirectly, it did. So you're incentivizing corruption. Now everybody wants the piece of the pie. So a lot of Afghans, local leaders, people in the government, they made a lot of money. But overall, the money, the military spending in Afghanistan, again, it went to the military, and whatever civilian money that was intended, it just got lost in transition in between. So, so it's these things are really like crucial to study carefully about any war, to understand why. These were the failures, and these failures were pretty obvious, guys. Right during the 3rd and 4th year of the war. So by 2005, this stuff was like in the report. So Congress would appoint an inspector general to conduct a review of the war. I don't know if it was done every year or every 2 years, something like that, guys. It was called SIGAR. Congression, I don't know what it stands for, but it was an inspector general would conduct a review of the war, and I read all those reports, and they were they were not good. Obviously the military high ranks would like bullshit, because that's their job, right? Oh yeah, everything is great, guys, everything is going well. If we just do like 2 more operations, we're gonna destroy the enemy. And okay, so regarding the enemy, again, Afghans resorted, so in this case the Taliban, they resorted to the same tactics that I covered in my other video, unconventional warfare. So you cannot face a conventional military, especially as powerful as the United States or I say the Soviets, with conventional ways, right? Because you just don't have the resources to do that. So what did they do? They resorted to how people fight in guerrilla warfare. So mobile units, units of, I don't know, for example, like units of, let's say if there were 100 guys, in one area fighting, so they would divide up into groups of 5 into 20. So 20, 20, 20, 20, and then they would spread out. Sometimes they would not even communicate with each other. The commanders would be like, they would enjoy autonomy. I don't know if enjoying is the right part, but they had autonomy. So they would just run the battle, conduct the battle the way they saw fit under those circumstances. So now you're dealing with the enemy that's very mobile. They constantly move around in the mountains. They're not in one area. Just conducting a war in a country like Afghanistan is extremely challenging. Anybody who has done military service, they know this. It's just you're dealing with an enemy you cannot see. They're part of the local population, and they spread around. They are mobile. This is not a command and control type of war. Okay, guys, air defense is over there, and the base is over here, and if you just take the head off and then attack the towers, and no, that's not that's exactly what the Soviets thought. So anyways, so yeah, I mean, and the Inspector General would cover some of this. They couldn't do it directly because obviously the leaders, the politicians back in DC, they had to justify this war, right? So everything is great, guys. We're making great progress. War on terror. Mr. General here is bullshitting out of his ass, just BSing. But the lower ranking military guys, they knew what was going on. So especially the soldiers that did the war or did the fighting themselves, they knew that the fight is not a joke. Those guys, they're the Taliban, they're fighting. We may not like them or their mentality, but they're putting up a fight. We're managing to kill a lot of them, again, because of your power. Now imagine if they had 20%, 10% of the resources that the conventional military had. Man, it would be a lot worse. It was the arrogance that catches up to people. That's why, guys, be very, very cautious about what politicians say, especially when they want to wage war. Just be very cautious. Take a step back. Immediately be suspicious. And also, like these generals, I would rather listen to like a Marine infantry soldier than a general, right? So even though a general's rank is obviously high, but I would like. And that's what Greg Whitlock did, actually. So what he did, so you guys can read the book, but a little bit about the book. So internally, the military would do like a review and studies. So the book is a lot of it is based off of the Army, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, tasked University of Virginia with doing interviews and conducting a review of the war. So what happened is that a lot of the sergeants, lieutenants, even the lower ranks, E3s and stuff, they would interview them and say, okay, what happened, how was what regarding the war, and then some of the soldiers were the guys that did the fighting, they were they fight, and by they meant the Taliban. They were it's very it would be very wrong for us to underestimate them. They fight, they put up a fight. That's what the soldiers said when they actually, because they knew they lost teammates, brothers next to them, and they would kill themselves. So that's has an impact on you as a soldier. So they were and then they were interviewed higher ranks, captains, all the way to General, I believe General Petraeus and General McChrystal. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is there's a big contrast and difference, guys, between how General McChrystal and Petraeus were saying, what they were saying, and what the infantry guys were saying, and the lieutenants and the sergeants were saying. A big difference, guys. There's you will see a big contrast in how they're talking about the war and how the generals were talking about the war. There's a big difference. Anyways, 18 minutes, guys. I know this video was gonna go long. It's a topic I wanted to cover because unfortunately people have very short-term memories. Things kind of become hyped up and then people just forget. But these are not things you should forget or not care about. These are really important subjects that are really, really crucial to study and understand as to why things went the way they did. Personally, I think United States should have never invaded Afghanistan. They should have just went after bin Laden in other ways, and US has the resources to go after groups like that anywhere in the world. Do you really need to invade a whole country and become responsible for all its problems that you don't even understand? You don't even have a knowledge. There were very few people in the State Department and in other branches of the government that knew Afghanistan. So a lot of them were retired, so they were no longer in the State Department or government. Some of them had to be called back from retirement to help out and consult, so which they did. and I believe some could have just not been alive. They passed away. But a lot of them that were involved in this war, they just didn't know quite well the country to what to do. So that was all, and were bad decisions after bad decisions after bad decisions, just on top of each other, right? And when you do stuff like that for so long, you cannot look back and say, okay guys, let's correct all this. You can't. So you just gotta pack up and leave. And that's exactly what happened. So yeah, that's it guys. 20 minutes, almost 21 minutes. Damn. I mean, this video can go longer guys, 1 hour, but I'm gonna cut it here. All right guys, stay safe, be well, and be very vigilant against people who want to wage war, because war itself is a despicable act, and people who wage them, they're not that far from being despicable themselves, especially when they ask other people to fight and they don't, or they never had. Okay, that's it guys, take care.